Right now, I am standing in the very heart and center of the Brazilian city of São Paulo. Here in Greater São Paulo, some 23 million people live in the largest metropolis in the Americas. Bigger than New York City, bigger than Mexico City, bigger, much bigger than Buenos Aires, São Paulo. Many people outside of Brazil have not heard of it, but it's actually the largest city, like I said, in the Americas. It's the largest it is the largest metropolis in the Southern Hemisphere. It is a major city. It's now the economic center of Brazil, and I'm right here in the center of it. This is where the city started. In 1554, Jesuit Catholic priests came here and established a mission to reach out to the local Amerindians. And right here, the plaza that we're in is called the Praça de Sé. That is the where Sao Paulo was started. And behind me, this building here is a recreation. This is not the original building, but this is a recreation of the college that was established by those original Jesuits all those many hundreds of years ago. But now Sao Paulo did not become a major city until really the late 1800s, with the boom of coffee, the end of slavery in Brazil, and the beginning of mass migration of Europeans like Italians, Spaniards, Portuguese, and Germans here to Brazil. But today, it's now the economic capital of Brazil. But hundreds of years ago, this was just a small town with almost no relevance to the rest of Brazil whatsoever. But today, it is a massive megacity. It's unbelievable. Now we'll walk a little bit. We'll walk from here to the actually, this is not Praça de Sé. This is, I think it's like called Patio de Ecologia. Praça de Sé is a few blocks that way. My Portuguese, of course, is very bad. I don't speak Portuguese natively, so I don't pronounce it correctly. But what can you do? I am a gringo. So, yeah, anyway, Patio de Ecologia, or however it's pronounced correctly in Portuguese, that's where we are now. Now we're going to go a few blocks to Praça de Sé.
Okay, where the homeless? Do you want to film the homeless?
Well, you can hear my person hear my person filming the video. This is my lovely friend. We actually met in Portugal when I was living in Portugal for a little bit. So you can hear her commentary, yeah, and you can see her hands there. Yeah, and there's also, as we'll see when we walk the few blocks, there's a lot of homelessness, heavy drug users. There's a lot of police presence here in the historic center. It's quite sad. It's kind of we got some police right here behind me. It's quite sad. It's a little bit reminiscent for me of certain cities in the United States where the historic center has become hollowed out and full of drug users and homeless, and it's very sad. A lot of the economic energy here in Sao Paulo has moved to the western part of the city, west of the city center, to places like Avenida Paulista, Itamibibi, Pinheiros. These neighborhoods now, actually, if you go there, the buildings are much newer, nicer. There's a lot more people. The historic center is actually kind of relatively abandoned, even though there is a lot of big buildings. There is a lot of commerce. There's a lot of government going on here, but even still, it's kind of been taken over by a lot of homelessness, a lot of drug use, a lot of petty crime, theft. You see so many police cameras. It's quite sad, to be honest. But anyway, we'll move over a little bit. So the history of Sao Paulo, how Sao Paulo became such an enormous megapolis, really the economic center, the economic capital of Brazil. And how did this happen? Well, originally, first it was Salvador. That was the first capital of Brazil. That was where the economy was, the politics were. And then it moved to Rio de Janeiro. That happened in the 1700s when Rio de Janeiro became the capital of Brazil. Then Brazil became independent in the early 1800s, in the 1820s, and Rio de Janeiro remains the capital of Brazil, the economic capital, the political capital, the cultural capital, is the biggest city. Then in the 1960s, the political capital was moved into the middle of the country, into Brasilia, which remains a city of a few million people, much smaller than Sao Paulo or Rio. And so Rio began to decline, both not only politically, because the political capital had moved, but also economically. And Sao Paulo began to grow quite a bit. The companies moved here. I believe something like half of the multinational companies that are here in Brazil have their regional headquarters here in Sao Paulo. And so if you look at a demographic map of Brazil, you'll see that the northern part of Brazil is mostly African. The descendants of the African slaves who were brought here by the Portuguese to work in the sugar plantations and other plantations in the north. And that's where you also find the Amerindian population for the most part, in places like the Amazon. Although Brazil has a very small Amerindian population relative to other countries in Latin America, like say Mexico or Guatemala, or even Argentina. Even Argentina has a larger percentage-wise Amerindian population than Brazil does. But here in the south, and technically Sao Paulo, Minas Gerais, Rio de Janeiro, these are considered the southeast. So some Brazilians will get a little upset if you say the Sao Paulo is the south. But if you come here, I remember taking the bus from Rio de Janeiro to Sao Paulo, and getting off the bus and walking around just the first few hours here in Sao Paulo, and it really was so different than Rio. It is clearly a city with, not really here, but in other parts of Sao Paulo, there's so much more economic development. People are so much more serious. You see so many more suits and ties. And so really, to me, and demographically, Sao Paulo is also much more European than Rio. Rio's much more African. A lot more African culture, African people, African music. And Sao Paulo is, of course, much more European. And so coming here, it feels like the beginning of the South. I would say that the South is, realistically, it's Sao Paulo, Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina, and Paraná. And so anyway, the south of Brazil used to be unpopulated, more or less. There was very few people because there was no slavery, there was no plantation, there was no reason to be here. And so the only people who lived here were like subsistence farmers. We'll go into the plaza here. Lots of stray dogs in this part of town.
Yeah, it's not easy for me to be a filmmaker.
Yeah, but anyway, so originally the South was very unpopulated. It was like subsistence farmers, but in the mid-1800s, late 1800s, there was a coffee boom here in Brazil. And to this day, Brazil produces, I do believe, most of the world's coffee still. It's actually quite amazing. But there was a huge boom in the demand for coffee in Europe because Europe switched from drinking beer and wine to drinking coffee. Some people say that's where the Age of Enlightenment came from, as everyone was now drinking caffeine as opposed to alcohol. But anyway, there was a huge boom in the coffee industry. And also, after slavery ended in Brazil in 1888, it was the last you might call European country, the last country in the Western Hemisphere in the Americas to end slavery. When slavery ended in 1888, Brazil needed more people to populate the country. They were going to have a new type of economy, a more middle-class economy with paid laborers. And so they thought, well, where can we get workers to work in the factories? Brazil was industrializing. Farmers, where can we get these people? So they thought, well, we'll get them from Europe. And so millions and millions of Germans, Italians, and of course Portuguese and Spanish came here in the late 1800s and the early 1900s here to Brazil, and the vast, vast majority of them came here to the south, particularly here to Sao Paulo. In fact, I think I read that something like 1/3, if not more, of the people there in Sao Paulo have at least partial Italian ancestry. So this was a major city of Italian settlement. Not only did Europeans come here, but also this is the largest Japanese community in the world outside of Japan. It's actually amazing. Coming here, you see a lot of Japanese people and you see a lot of influence of Japanese culture. The cityscape, the way that the businesses are built, it's very reminiscent of Japan. You know, and having been in Japan, I did see a lot of interesting similarities between here in Sao Paulo and in Japan. It was quite amazing. And so the Japanese came here for the same reason as the Germans, the Italians, the Spaniards. They came here to work in that booming coffee industry, and as well, and to work in the factories as Brazil was industrializing.
Let's go.
And so, yeah, we'll go a little further. And they'll only talk a few more minutes, and then we'll end things. This plaza that we're in, there's a pretty strong police presence, but there are so many people doing drugs and like having fights, and so it's a little bit intimidating. It's a little bit scary, but hey, I persist.
Really?
I persist.
Really?
I persist for you. The things I do for you. So I hope that you enjoyed the video.
Yeah, because it's fucking not good.
And
It's dangerous here, guys. Don't come to here, like Xandinho, right? Don't
Yes.
come here.
well, you can come, but come during the day and be smart.
Not with cell phone and a microphone like him right now, but
Yeah.
please.
But yeah, so I mean that's pretty much it. It's just that as Brazil's demography changed, the economy changed, and Sao Paulo became what it is today. This just booming, bustling metropolis. I mean, it really is something. We're at 2,500 feet above sea level. That's actually exactly where we are right now. And so because of that, the climate is more mild. It's much cooler than in Rio, which is only a few hours away, but it's much hotter because it's on the coast. And actually, Sao Paulo is at the same latitude. If you took South America and you put it on top of North America, Sao Paulo would be at the same latitude as San Diego, California. And so it's actually not in the tropics. It's close to the tropics, but it's actually not a tropical latitude. We're actually in the subtropics. And so Sao Paulo has more of a subtropical highland climate. Right now, it's like high 70s, like 76, 77, very pleasant. That's like what, 24 degrees, something like that. So a little, you can feel a little chill in the air, but it's a very pleasant temperature. And now here in this square, we can see the Metropolitan Cathedral of Sao Paulo. This is one of the most important Catholic churches in the country of Brazil. Beautiful cathedral. I was in there just yesterday, actually. Yesterday was Palm Sunday. Easter Sunday is this coming Sunday. Very important. In Brazil, I believe Thursday and Friday are a holiday. People are off from work. Brazil is a very Catholic country, a very Christian country, actually much more so than the United States or Germany or Britain or France or really any European country in Europe or North America. People here are still quite observant, quite religious, and actually there's a very large and rapidly growing Protestant community here in Brazil. The Pentecostals are rapidly growing, very popular here in Brazil. In fact, you'll see street preachers. You might have actually heard a few of them in the background of this video yelling. You'll see street preachers all over the place here in the historic center. And those street preachers are, of course, not Catholic priests. They are mostly Pentecostal street pastors, street preachers. So you can see that Pentecostalism, Protestantism more generally, is actually growing very rapidly here in Brazil. And today I do believe that about a third of Brazilians, or at least the population of Brazil, are Protestant. Whereas historically, they would have been 95% Catholic. And so that's quite a major change in Brazilian society, the society of Brazil. Well, anyway, not much more to say. I've really enjoyed my time here in Sao Paulo. It is noticeably more developed than Rio. There's so much to see, so much to do. Like I said, 23 million people in the metropolitan area.
It's not true. I'm from Rio. It's not true.
All right. Well, my lovely videographer, she is from Rio.
Don't
and so
say anything about
Rio is
Rio.
very beautiful, but there's just
Yeah.
not there's not the amount of economy and culture and just diversity that is here in Sao Paulo. And so obviously people go to Rio because it is world-class beautiful.
The beautiful city of Brazil.
It is beautiful. It is historical. We're in the historical center and there's not nearly as much history. The buildings are a lot newer, but this is the metropolis of Brazil. And so if you really want to see, in many ways, the get a better portrait of the Brazilian soul, this might be the best place to go in Brazil, even if there isn't the nature that you might see in Rio or many other parts of Brazil. Well, anyway.
You want to do an interview?
I think I'll leave things there. All right. Until next time.
Woohoo!
Ciao.
That's changing our time.